Hey, what's up, everyone? This is a new segment we're doing. This is a Kiss album focus, and I brought my good buddy here, childhood best friend, who is also a crazy Kiss nerd, and we're going to be discussing each Kiss album in their catalog, or what I deem the core 35 albums in their catalog. So, Brian, you want to introduce yourself and let everybody know who the hell you are?
Yeah, hi everybody. So my name is Brian. Like Ray said, we childhood best friends. We grew up together, and I have been an enormous Kiss fan ever since really Ray himself introduced me to Kiss. And I was, I think we were 12-ish, about 12, give or take a year, about 12, and I had really started getting into a lot of rock and roll and hard rock and stuff. And my dad had this huge album collection that, Aerosmith and, Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, all that
stuff. His dad
stuff.
actually had the best album collection.
It was a solid collection.
Yeah.
And he had 500 albums, but ironically, he didn't have any Kiss. It's not that he didn't like them; it's just it wasn't one of his favorites. So he didn't end up getting a lot of their albums. So I was getting into all this really cool hard rock, classic rock music, and I didn't know anything about Kiss really because I was going by my dad's album collection. And me and Ray, I moved to the town Ray lived in, and we became friends. And then I remember, I'll never forget to this day, that the first thing you played for me, Room Service, Dress to Kill, first track, Dress to Kill went on. 30 seconds in, I'm like, this is awesome. And huge Kiss fan ever since. So I'm real excited to be here and excited to talk about this great band.
Well, this would be pretty cool. And the coolest thing, and the audience would know this, but you would know it, is that we not just do we love Kiss, but we actually we have a history with Kiss in the sense that we met thanks to you, we met them. We met Paul and Gene during the press tour for Carnival of Souls. We got to sit in on a radio interview for this awesome contest you won, which is great.
Yeah.
But not just listening, but I don't know if I just remembered this a few days ago. We actually, for a while, had a pretty successful Kiss bootleg trading. I wouldn't say business because we never really made money, but we accumulated hundreds of Kiss shows via audio or video recording. So, not only do we love the band, but we've just about heard everything. So we there's a lot to comment on.
Yeah. I mean,
and if I was going to do a show about Kiss, I wouldn't do it with anybody other than you. So you got me broadcasting from Dayton, Ohio, and Boonton, New Jersey. So we'll dive into here. So each episode, just to kind of give a little bit of an introduction, is going to focus on one album in particular. And we'll give a brief history and some of the statistics that go along with this thing. But it's kind of important. Kiss gets a lot of hate, and I understand some of that hate.
Me too.
But Kiss is not necessarily an album rock band. Kiss was always a live spectacle that you had to go see. The
live show is what it was all about for them.
It was like a traveling Barnum and Bailey is essentially what it was. It was a traveling circus. That's it. It was a psycho circus.
Yeah.
See what you did there? That was a good one. That was a good one. So the albums themselves work almost like a promotional tool for the next show, for the next tour.
Yeah.
And it's funny when you get into this stuff, some of the stories and stuff that goes into the recording and some of the statistics, and you look through that, that seems to get lost on people, because when it comes to Kiss, and I hear it from a guy I work with at the comic book store who hates Kiss. How you doing, Nick?
Really? Oh, that's
but it's more of a fun back and forth that we have. It's like, you hear, well, they're not great musicians. Actually, that's not true. They're actually really good musicians.
Absolutely.
But Kiss doesn't need to be great musicians for what they do.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't need to. And it's kind of hard to be a technically great guitar player when you're running around the stage. And half of it is blowing up.
And you're wearing all this makeup and you're wearing all this gear and, you
Mm-hmm.
have all this lights and flames and, these big pyrotechnics and everything. And like, yeah, sure. There are bands, there are guys who are incredibly skilled musicians that can do that. But a lot of people, I think, dismiss Kiss's technical ability as being like, oh, whatever, these are just very basic songs and everything. And I'll tell you, when I first started playing guitar, I obviously wanted to learn a lot of Kiss stuff because they're one of my favorite bands. So, and I started looking through some of their stuff, and a lot of it is really trickier than people give it credit for. I mean, not that they don't have some of the very simple 3-chord songs or whatever, but for the most part, it's trickier than it seems.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it.
Yeah. And some of it is meant to be, excuse me, some of it is meant to be, well, not necessarily meant to be, but the songs were kind of written in many ways to be able to play live.
Mm-hmm.
So, Ace Frehley didn't have a Eddie Van Halen style to what it is that he did. So it wasn't about the notes. It wasn't about the flash. And that way, the flash was the live concert, all the props and the explosions and the lights and this and that and the dancing. So just figured I'd throw that out there. But our story for this episode actually begins with the first album. So the first Kiss album was actually, they went to the recording studio late October and early November of 1973. It was actually released on February 18th, 1974. And it did not do well.
And it came and nobody noticed.
So it's funny when you start looking at the chart positions in the States, it peaked at 87 on the top 100 albums. But for whatever reason in New Zealand, it peaked at 38, which I thought was kind of interesting.
New Zealand loves that first album, apparently.
They do.
And I think, if I remember correctly, and it took a few years, but I think it ended up selling like 75,000 copies.
Yeah.
In the 70s, but it took until 77 or 78 to even hit that number. It was not a big seller.
No, and in fact, Kiss did not really sell albums really till they got to their fourth album, Alive, and we'll get into that down the road. But the first album, not so much.
Yeah,
not so much, which is a shame because it's actually a fantastic album. It's a really good album.
Yeah,
and it basically is. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, and I'm of the mindset, and I know we talked about this in a previous discussion we had, but really, almost all the songs on there are I think, better in the live versions. Mm-hmm. There, the stuff on Alive and some of the later live albums. I like the live versions mostly better on most of those songs. But if you forget about that and you just look at it as a studio album, it's a really good album. There are some really, really strong songs on there.
Well, it's funny because this album has essentially become the backbone for every Kiss live show since 1974. Yeah. I mean, you can go through the set list, which I have been doing, but I'm not sure if there was ever a tour where at least one song from this album was played.
Oh yeah. I mean, some of them, there's at least three that I can think of on there that have been staples in probably at least 80 or 85% of the live shows they've ever done. Mm-hmm. One or two in particular that I don't even think I've ever even seen a live show where they didn't play it. Mm-hmm. For the most part, maybe getting one or two exceptions here or there. But.
Mm-hmm. So we'll dive into it. Let's take a look at what the track listing for the album was. So at the time, it was an LP, a record. So there was two sides. We had Strutter, Nothing to Lose, Firehouse, Cold Gin, Let Me Know, Kissing Time, Deuce, Love Theme from Kiss, 100,000 Years, and Black Diamond. So let's start with Strutter.
Absolutely love it. Love Strutter. I've always loved Strutter. It was one of the early songs for me that really sucked me into Kiss. I mean, like I said earlier in the video, we started with Dress to Kill, or I started with Dress to Kill, as far as my first exposure to Kiss. But ever since the first time I heard Strutter, always thought it was a really cool song. Still take it to this day.
So the funny thing is, Strutter is actually one of my favorite Kiss songs. But
yeah, love it.
We're both children of MTV, and I think my kids certainly, MTV isn't what it used to be. No. So at a time, it used to be constant music all the time. So I'm sure because I watched MTV a lot, I had seen Kiss on there. That being said, the first time I can remember sitting down and someone saying, "Hey, check this band out," was actually my Uncle Gene, and the first song he played was Strutter. And I went, it's okay. I mean, it's good. It's not bad or anything. I was like, all right, well, check out this one. Played Creatures of the Night, and that was the needle right into the vein. And from then I was hooked. So I love Strutter. Strutter is a great song live. It's not terribly difficult to play.
Yeah. And it's one of their more simplistic songs.
It's one of their more simplistic songs, but the cool thing is throughout the years, and I think it's just from playing it so many times, Paul continues to do different variations of the vocal. And it's one song you can almost I've never heard him play it bad. I've never seen Kiss do this song bad.
Yeah, it's always solid, Strutter.
I once saw an interview with Steven Tyler where he said his favorite song to play is Sweet Emotion, because you can sing it or you can talk it, and you're always playing it at the end of the night. So depending on how much you sang earlier in the day, if your voice was raspy, you can just walk through. Strutter to me is like one of those songs for Kiss. You can walk into it and breeze right through it, or you can pull every vocal trick in the book and just have fun with it. Yep. Next song is Nothing to Lose. So this is one of those cool songs that Kiss started doing early on that actually has two vocals in it. You have Gene that sings the verse, and then Peter starts doing answers in the chorus.
Kind of. It's doing like scat fills or whatever.
And it's great, especially the early stuff with Kiss. The cool thing about the original four guys is later on, when Ace started singing, you had four voices in the band that were remarkably different from one another. But when they all sang together, it sounded great. Absolutely. So anytime you had a song like Nothing to Lose where you get multiple vocals, and later on there's another song on this album called Let Me Know where the duties are split between Paul and Gene.
Yep. That's
cool. I like it when Kiss does that.
Absolutely. I agree completely. And Nothing to Lose is one of those songs where I think really, really shows what I was saying earlier about how it's a cool song on the record, but when you hear it live, it really sings more. It really, really is great live.
Mm-hmm. I agree 100%. The next song is a cool song called Firehouse, another Paul Stanley vocal. Mm-hmm. Tell me about Firehouse, Brian.
I like Firehouse. I mean, I like that track. I think for me, probably of the big songs on the first album, of which I would argue there's 10 tracks and probably 8 of them are big. I would consider big. Firehouse is probably not one I like as much as some of the other ones. Not as much as Strutter and some of the ones we'll get to in a minute or two. But it's a cool, fun track. And, when they do it live, of course, they did. Paul Stanley comes out with a fireman's hat on, and, they got the siren going and there's smoke and stuff. So, I mean, it's
Gene's
a cool,
breathing fire.
Yeah, that's right. Gene's breathing fire. So, I mean, it's a cool live spectacle song. So it's really good for that. As a studio cut on the album, it's cool, but it's not like one of my favorites on the album.
Yeah, kind of what you mentioned before, we've discussed it, is these songs are so much better in a live setting. Mm-hmm. They're great on the album. In fact, most of this album is routinely on FM rock radio. So chances are, if you're hearing Firehouse, you're not hearing it off of a live album later on. You're hearing it off this first album. Strutter, Deuce, Cold Gin. Most likely they're playing this version of it. Because that's what they do. Why play the great cut that's on a live?
Yeah.
But this song is basically designed to be a, certainly later on, it's a live spectacle. Like you said, you got all the smoke, you got the sirens wailing, you got Gene Simmons breathing fire. It's got its own little spot in the show.
Yeah, I mean, it almost feels in some way like Firehouse was like written for the sole purpose of playing it live and doing all the spectacle stuff. Like, it almost feels like they were sitting around. They were like, well, when we're doing a live set, like Gene's like, well, I could breathe fire in one song, and Paul's, well, we could have sirens and smoke and stuff. It almost kind of feels like they had those concepts and they wanted to write a song where they could do all that stuff live. And it would fit with the theme.
They actually had these conversations, and Kiss is a tough band to classify and really hard to deconstruct because they don't look at things the same way as other bands. It's like I said, they're going to make their money and they're going to make their bank all on the road because they were never this huge. Their albums didn't sell millions and millions and millions. On a whole, they've sold over 100 million records because their catalog is so vast and they have a hardcore audience. But each album individually is not always going to be a million seller.
No.
So this is definitely one of those songs that it's geared and almost designed for a live setting, like you said.
Yep. So
the next song is Cold Gin.
One of my favorites, one of the early favorites for me out of, the makeup era. A song that like immediately grabbed me when I first heard those first 3 or 4 records the first time. Loved Cold Gin from the word go. Love it live, where they do the big like they used to, I don't know if they still do it. They used to do the big like ending intro. It was like a big like finale ending, but it was like
big schmoz.
Exactly. And then it just went right into but they used it as an intro, went right into the actual intro of Cold Gin. And absolutely love this tune. Interestingly enough, the tune, and a lot of people probably think of it as a Gene Simmons song because he's does the vocal on it, but the song was really written by Ace Frehley.
Yeah.
But Ace just wasn't confident in his singing ability at the time. So, it ended up becoming a Gene Simmons vocal, but love Cold Gin.
It's one of those things, people talk about, there's a lot that you can say about each member of the band, but this is one of those things that's like a weird, because the song that always stands out when you talk about this is Yesterday by Paul McCartney. He basically was on the subway and just nothing in hand, no pad, no pen, just riding the subway, and the entire song came to him sitting on the subway. Yeah. We're talking vocals, lyric, melody, everything. It basically was a completed song. He said, oh, by the way, here, I brought this. And they're all like, what is this? This is great. This is fantastic. Yeah. But like you said, he wasn't confident in his abilities at the time. Yep. A live staple. Every time, it seems like, every few tours, it ends up getting kicked off the set, to make room for something else. But it's also one of those songs that when it's not there, you really miss it. So it always makes its way back.
And I think it's a big, when you're in, and you and I have both seen Kiss live multiple times, a few together and a few separately. But I think it's one of those songs where once it starts, the audience is always on board. You know what I mean? Like the audience is always on board to like sing along with the vocal, sing along with the chorus and pump their fists and everything. It's a crowd pleasing anthem kind of song.
It's like it almost bounces. I mean, the place goes nuts, and you get that a lot for a lot of the songs off of the first three albums. And most of that has to do with Alive itself. Once those songs start getting played, it's like nobody's going to the bathroom, nobody's grabbing a drink, nobody's getting a soft pretzel.
Yeah,
We're
no,
rocking
nobody's
now.
getting a pretzel during cold gin.
No. Okay, so the next song is Let Me Know. This one actually has a interesting little piece of history. This is actually the first song that Paul Stanley played for Gene Simmons. And Paul actually always talks because, you know, we all know Gene, we all love Gene, but we know he is his biggest fan.
He really admires him.
Yeah, Gene really likes Gene Simmons.
Yeah.
But that being said, this is the first time that he met Gene Simmons. Gene was a bit shocked that he found somebody else that could write music. He figured himself and Lennon and McCartney were the only ones doing it.
Yeah.
He just didn't have any awareness to it. And the song that he played at the time was called Sunday Driver, which ended up being on Kiss's first album. It's a cool little track.
It's all right. Yeah, it's okay.
Honestly, I think it's much better live when you hear it down the road off of You Wanted the Best, You Got the Best.
Yep. Agreed.
Because I love listening to it with that. It's a double vocal. It's cool. A little snippet at the end of it is what they end up pulling off and attaching it to the back end of She later on when they played live. But in the context of this album, it seems like it's a little bit of a novelty.
Yeah, I agree. It's okay. Like, you know, look, I mean, not the album, every track can't be a mind-blowing, great success. I mean, Let Me Know, I feel like it's a cool little song. It's not, nobody's putting it in their top 10 Kiss songs of all time. Nobody's doing it. But it's also not in the bottom 10 either. Like, it's okay. You know.
Like I said, it's a good song. It's just not a great song.
Yeah, agreed.
And there's a recorded version that's better in the catalog. Now, this next one is actually pretty interesting. It's called Kissing Time. So the story on this song is the original pressing of the album didn't actually have this on it.
Yep.
This was a Neil Bogart production. Paul Stanley calls it a ruse. They're using it to, Neil Bogart wants something that can help promote the band, and they designed these kissing contests for the band Kiss. And this is the song that they recorded for that. It's not very good. Having Kiss going in and play and re-record a Bobby Rydell song is probably not what they were looking for at the moment.
Yeah.
But it's certainly a novelty song in their catalog. It's not, Let Me Know is a great song compared to Kissing Time.
Yeah, I mean, look, Kissing Time is, I mean, it's, for me, it's the worst song on the album. I mean, it's probably one of my lowest rated Kiss songs of all time out of their whole catalog. I don't care for it. It's the only song on that first album. One other one that we're about to talk about in a minute is pretty low too, but it's one of only two maybe on the entire first album that I will outright say that I don't like.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's always kind of like, so if Kiss has 300 songs in their catalog, this song definitely ranks in the bottom third.
Oh, yeah.
To me, it's just kind of like a novelty. If I happen to be listening to the album, I'll listen to the song. I don't hate it. There's other songs I hate. I will never listen to in the Kiss catalog. This is not one of them. But there is nothing special going on here. No. If there's anything, it's cool to have Paul, Gene, and Peter all sing on a song, because honestly, I think there's only two where all three of them have lead work on it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, there's not many.
No, certainly not. So like I said, it's interesting. The band hated doing it. They didn't want to do it, but it's one of those things where sometimes you have to suck it up. Like at every job, you don't like doing something, but you kind of have to. Neil Bogart was paying the bills at the time. So
yeah, I mean, they weren't stars yet. I mean, they didn't have any kind of, real power that would come later after, after like Alive and stuff. So, they had to do what they had to do to make sure the album got out, and they had singles and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I mean, it's not a great song. I mean, what are you going to say?
No. And like I said, the interesting thing about it is the first, I don't know the exact number, but probably 20,000 copies were pressed. It didn't even have the song on it.
Yeah.
So if you go out and find one of those, it's actually pretty rare, but they are out there. So for any Kiss collector that would like to find something, that's one of the big albums to get, is to get the first album without Kissing Time.
Yep.
30,000 copies seems rather high. I think it's much lower than that, maybe 5,000. But, it is what it is. The next song we got is a big one. It's Deuce.
I am a huge fan of Deuce. I think it's probably one of my all-time favorite Gene songs. I think it is great live. It is a song that is just kicks ass live. The whole big ending they do live where they sway back and forth with the guitars against each other, and there's the big drum fill at the end and everything that leads into the double stop ending or whatever is I love Deuce. Deuce is great. Fantastic. And Gene himself said he has no idea what the song is about. He don't know what the lyrics are about. He don't know. He wrote it. He don't know what the hell it means. But it's such a great rock and roll song that it's like I don't even care. It's so cool.
So the great thing about this song is it's kind of tucked away on the back end of the of side B, but this is the song. If you saw Kiss between 73 and 74, all the way up to 76, if you saw Kiss, this was the opener. And there's only a couple of songs that Kiss has tried to do different songs to open their act throughout the years. There's only like 2 or 3 that really kick off the show well. And Deuce is one of those songs. And it's actually awesome too, especially later on in like the reunion tour. They kicked off with Deuce, but in other tours, it was like the second song. Again, it does great there. They even on certain tours, they use it as an encore. And Gene actually said early on in their career, when they be the third act, they'd get to play 5 songs, and then they do an encore. They'd just do Deuce again because it went over so well. I mean, it was just it was a gut punch to start the show. It was
it's fan favorite track. Great song.
Yeah, Deuce rules. We all like Deuce. And the next one, the 8th track on the album, I know is going to be one of your personal favorites. It's Love Theme from Kiss.
Oh, why?
So it's nothing special. On here, it's an instrumental.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy too, because really, how many instrumentals have they ever released on a studio album?
Only a couple.
I mean, it's very, very low. I don't have the number in front of me, but I feel like I can only think of like 2 or 3.
Yeah, I can only think of 2. Besides Escape from the Island.
Yeah, I mean that's the other. Yeah, it's the one I was thinking of. Yeah, but I mean that's it. I mean it's like, you don't need to hear a Love Theme from Kiss. I don't know what's going on there. Skip it.
So the crazy thing about this album is Kiss at the time actually had like 16 songs in their catalog that were really ready to go to start recording. So the producers, Kerner and Wise, they selected the songs for the album. And they picked this one, but at the same time, there's no She. There's no Watching You.
Yeah, which was a Wicked Lester song.
Yeah. They have all these other songs that they were playing live at the time. This wasn't one of them. Let Me Go, Rock and Roll, they were playing live at this time.
Yep.
But they chose this, and it wasn't very great. And to be honest with you, it actually used to be a much longer song. They ended up including it later as a track on the box set, a song called Acrobat. It's actually a two-part song. This was the first part, and then it went into another section that was much more rockin', called You're Much Too Young. They decided to cut it out and said, no, we'll do this. It was kind of like a hip popular theme at the time. There was a number of songs that came out with the love theme of something. And it's like, we'll record this and it'll be the love theme from Kiss, because Kiss didn't have any ballads. So this is kind of like the way to do that.
Yeah.
It's all right.
I mean, it's not dreadful. It's not like, oh my God, I can't even listen to this. Like, it's not like that, but I tell you, if I listen to the first album, which normally I don't, just because like we talked about, I like the live versions a lot better. But if I do throw the first album on and I'm like listening to it in the car or something, I skip that track. I got to admit, I skip it.
I mean, I kind of do the same thing. It's kind of like Kissin' Time. You may or may not listen to it. Many times you'll skip it, but it's okay. It's going to be in the bottom third of their songs. So it is what it is. It not horrible. Like I said, we'll talk about other songs down the line that are pretty bad.
Yeah.
But in this case, it's not horrible, but it's certainly not a favorite.
But then they come back with the 1-2 punch to finish the album.
100,000 Years.
100,000 Years is next. Again, another song that is far superior live. And is really, really cool live. But that being said, I really like 100,000 Years. Like, I really like that song. I think it's a really cool song. And I really dig it.
Yeah, it's a great song. And again, it's another one of those songs that this recording of it is pretty good, but when you hear it live, it just becomes a spectacle. Live certainly around this time also included a drum solo with Peter Criss, but there was this nice little Paul Stanley starts doing this Christian minister persona that he started taking on and weeding into his act, which worked great. Just working with the crowd and fire and all this stuff, twirling the microphone and doing all this. It's a spectacle song.
Absolutely.
But it's a cool little song.
I really dig 100,000. I think that's one of their more, and I don't know that the song is underrated technically, but I think when you talk to Kiss fans, like, that's a song that doesn't necessarily get thrown out a lot as being like, a big marquee song for them. But I actually think that song is underrated. I really think 100,000 Years is a cool song.
Yeah, it was a song shortly. Once you start getting into Destroyer, Rock and Roll Over era live shows, this song is thrown out of the set in favor of new material and doesn't quite make it back until the mid 90s.
Yeah.
And then from there, it stuck around for quite a period of time. But I think it is definitely an underrated track in their catalog. It is fantastic. And our final selection off the album is Black Diamond.
Finish.
Yeah. Huge song. This is a song that actually gets a lot of radio airplay. Cool little intro from Paul Stanley and goes into a heavy Peter Criss vocal.
Huge staple in their live set. I love Black Diamond. Love it. Love it live. Love the studio version too. Like the live version better, but absolutely love it. I wasn't always immediately on board early on with Kiss with Peter Criss's vocals. I wasn't always immediately on board. I didn't like his vocals necessarily as much as Gene and Paul's initially, but I've sort of like I've come more around on that over the years, and I maybe don't feel that way anymore necessarily. But Black Diamond was always one where I never minded. Like Peter sounds great. The intro from Paul is great. When they do it live, the big drawn out finish, the way Paul does the intro live, just love Black Diamond. Love it.
And it's a cool song that when you start getting into the, it did pop out of the set for a little while.
Yeah.
But it was kind of in and out. But once Peter Criss was replaced or quit, however you want to do it, this became a staple for Eric Carr to sing throughout the 80s.
Yep.
It never really left the live sets. And if you go online and you start looking up, tour statistics, this is one of the top songs in their catalog if you go to setlist.com, the song itself is one of the biggest played songs. It's ranked 4th with 1,780 times. Think of all of those Kiss songs, and it is the 4th most played song. Because one, it's fantastic live, okay, and it was a song typically for the drummer to sing. So Peter sang it, Eric Carr sang it, Eric Singer sang it on all these different tours,
and all of them did a good job.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
Eric Carr and Eric Singer's performance of Black Diamond, the performances that I've heard, were all good. Like, they were all competent.
Yeah, it was really good. Nobody quite sings like Peter. He's got a very distinct, raspy voice. Gravel,
yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of hard to necessarily, mimic that exactly. Everybody has their own tonal quality and stuff. But, the song is very dynamic, too, which I like, which you not necessarily say. I mean, you could take a song like Strutter or a song like Deuce, and great songs. But Black Diamond is a little bit more dynamic when you compare it to those songs. The quiet intro and the big highs, and then the drawn out ending when they play it live and everything. So, very dynamic song. Great song. Great way to end the first album, in my opinion.
Great way to end the first album, except for the last 2 minutes where they just continue to slow the tape. Slow the tape.
And it gets a little,
I can't remember the last time I've listened to the whole thing. After a while, it's just like, okay, I get it.
Yeah, once they start slowing the tape, it's like, okay, what am I listening to next?
So, Kiss was a rock band that used their albums to promote the next tour and to get people out to their live shows. And the live shows were actually pretty interesting. So around this time, Kiss was an opening act. And actually around this time of the album, people don't seem to realize that around this time, tours mostly had not just an opening act, but sometimes 2 or 3 opening acts before the main artist came on. Kiss was usually the opening to the opening act.
Yeah.
So in a lot of cases, they only got to play 5, 6 songs, and then they were off. But the average set list for this period is Deuce, Cold Gin, Nothing to Lose, Firehouse, Let Me Know, 100,000 Years, and Black Diamond.
And what a killer set list.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like a 25 to 30 minute, maybe 30 minutes. That's like a half hour killer set list. It really is. I mean, if you only get a half hour to play and you only have one album done, and these are your big songs off the album, or what you consider to be the big songs off the album, like, that is a killer set.
And at the time, they actually, it looks like they did perform Kissing Time twice on the tour. Once in Vancouver and once in Portland. Lucky from Kiss did not. It was played as part of the actual song called Acrobat. Looks like a few times. But again, that's the basic Kiss show that you were seeing right there. And another interesting thing about going into the recording of this album, the original 5-track demo for this album was actually recorded by Eddie Kramer, believe it or not. And it included Deuce, Cold Gin, Strutter, Watching You, and Black Diamond. Watching You did not make the cut for this album, but it's cool to go back. I know they released some on the box set through the Bell Sound Studios demos. Kerner and Wise, the producers, did a really good job of doing what a producer should be doing, and that's helping to tailor the songs. If you go back and listen to things like Firehouse on the album is different than the way they were playing Firehouse around this time. There was a few other weird sections of the songs that they added in. So essentially the producer should be going in and say, all right, let's trim the fat on this song. This song is 5 minutes long. It doesn't need to be 5 minutes. I really hear a song that's 3 minutes on it. Let's cut this out. And we're looking for singles that we want to get on the radio. And that typically isn't a 5-minute song.
Mm-hmm.
So, but there's a lot of cool stuff out there. If you YouTube it, there's some cool shows. There's a cool show in Memphis. Of course, it's nice to check out the in-concert performances, everything that was released on the Kissology DVDs. Those are pretty cool. So now we're pretty much down to where we rank this album.
And I want to say, I just want to preface this part by saying that for me personally, so my brain works like, okay, you have studio albums and then you have everything that's not a studio album. Like that's how my brain works. Like, so I rank studio albums. So the 20 studio albums, I have that ranking. And then I rank live compilation, live albums, compilations, greatest hits, whatever in a separate rank. So, and I also want to add one more precursor by saying that to me, ranking the Kiss studio albums, I mean, really both lists, but ranking the Kiss studio albums, there is no Kiss album that I outright hate.
Yeah.
There's not. The ones near the bottom, obviously, I like less than the ones near the top. But every Kiss album that's ever been released has at least one or two songs that I genuinely like on. So, that being said, and I wanted to say that about the different lists, because to me, like, as we said at the beginning, it's hard for me to say, like, okay, where the first Kiss studio album is, because I like all these songs better on live albums. But I didn't look at it that way. I ranked it in the sense, like, the live albums never happened. Here's the, this is where it fits in the pantheon of studio albums to me. I'm sorry, that was very long-winded.
Well, I mean, everybody's gonna, there's gonna be somebody that's gonna watch this video and go, oh, I agree. I disagree with this entirely. The first Kiss album was the best Kiss album of all time. I think we can all agree that to actually rank them is extremely subjective. You Absolutely. Can do it a number of different ways. For me, there's a lot of thought that goes into ranking them, but ultimately at the end of the day, the thing that is really going to drive the ranking for me is, if I were to put on a Kiss album, what would I go to? And I'll start this. So as far as my actual ranking on the album, I love it. I ranked everything 1 to 35, and this sits at number 25. Is it because it's a bad album? No, it's just the driving factor in this is, if I'm going to listen to Strutter, I'm going to listen to a live version, specifically off of a live. All of these songs are great songs, some better than others, like Kissing Time and Love Theme. But that being said, the live versions blow away these songs. It's almost like, while the album is important to the history of the band, it basically becomes irrelevant with the release of a live.
And that's a fair point. I mean, that's a fair point that is hard to argue. I mean, and as you said, like, look, these kinds of rankings and lists are always subjective. These are obviously our personal opinions. We're not, I'm not saying that, this album is definitively better than this album, or this is just my preference, your preference. This is just how we feel about it. I mean, for me, ranking it on, again, just the list of studio albums, the 20 studio albums, for me, I ranked it at number 6. Because I feel like, even though I like, again, most of these songs, live versions better, I can't discount how important these songs are to history. And for me, looking at it as a studio album compared to the other studio albums, for me, it lands at number 6.
I mean, I can't argue that. I mean, there's certain things, like there's a lot of subjectivity that comes to this stuff, but there's just certain things, like if somebody's sitting there and said, like, this has to be a top 5 album because of the songs that appeared on this album, I can't argue that. My list is just, I don't listen to it. So in my iTunes library, it actually keeps a play count. Right. And all of these songs are at the bottom of my play count list. It just, because like I said, if I'm going to listen to Deuce, I'm going to hear it live, or I'm going to listen to it off of Live 3. That's just me. No, it's great songs.
I can't argue that. I mean, and like I said, to tell you the truth, I'm pretty much the same way. I haven't listened to the album version of Nothing to Lose in probably 15 years. Mm-hmm. Because I listened to it, live. Mm-hmm. But, the way I ranked it, that's where I feel like it needs to go for me.
So that's what we got. We're actually curious. We'd love to hear what your ranking is. So down and below in the comments, tell us what you think about the episode. Tell us how you rank the album. Where would you put it in your top 35? Outside of that, I think we pretty much accomplished actually, I did forget a little something. So on this particular album, Kiss had 3 singles, and they did nothing. The highest charting single from this album was Kissin' Time, and it charted at 83. They also had Nothing to Lose and Strutter released as singles, and it was, what we'll find as the more we talk about Kiss is Kiss really struggles with the press and mainstream critics. Most of them never even got on board ever. But at this time, they just saw Kiss as garbage and dismissed them immediately. Kiss really is a street grassroots band.
Absolutely. And let me ask you before we close, do you have like a favorite song on the album, and like a song that you like the least? I mean, the song that you like the least is probably a lot easier on this album, but...
So probably the song that I like the most is Strutter. Strutter is like a top 10 song for me in the entire catalog. I really love that song. As far as this album, probably Love Theme from Kiss is probably my least favorite on the album. What about you?
For me, I really, really love, like, honorable mentions to Strutter, Black Diamond, and Cold Gin, because all 3 of those are just top shelf. Mm-hmm. But I guess for me, edges it out. I guess I have to go Deuce. As my favorite. Love Theme from Kiss probably is the easy,
Love Theme.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, probably Deuce gets the nod from me.
Sweet. Well, Brian, thank you very much. This has been a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
We'd like everybody who watched the video, please like, subscribe, hit the ringy dingy so you get the notifications. New video spotlighting a new album will be available every week. So in this particular case, tell us what you think about the video and give us your ranking. I'm curious to see what some of these are. Maybe there's an episode later on down the road where we can discuss some of the comments and the rankings and probably some of the daggers that will get thrown our way.
Yeah, and also, please, if you are out there and you are a huge fan of Love Theme from Kiss or Kissin' Time, please put that in the comment and put in there why you love that track. There's probably none of you, but if there is, put it in the comments, because I would love to hear from people who love those 2 songs.
I think it would be amazing if somebody who won one of these kissing contests at the 10 cities that they did it in, hey, look, 1974 in Michigan, Detroit, I won the kissing contest with my wife, and now Kissing Time is my favorite. Hey, that would be a cool story. Outside of that, I can't see anybody doing that.
That'd be cool to hear, though.
So, all right, well, that's cool. So that's it for this week, and we'll see y'all every week. Brian, thank you very much. Do you have everybody that comes to me on my channel knows my social media? Do you have a social media you want to plug?
No, I mean, I don't. I mean, not really. I mean, you could just. I mean, I'm on Facebook. It's just Brian Curley, Kurley. You can find me on Facebook. I'm not really on there that much. Social media is not really my bag, but you can find me. I'm around.
Yep, we're around. Well, thank you very much. Thanks for participating, and we'll see you next week.
Bye, everybody.
Later.